There we go.
Hey there, healthy dispatchers. I'm Timm, and I have Tanya Lee with me,
Hello.
and today we're going to be talking about something that I'm really excited to talk about. The discussion today is about creating a healthy 911 environment, and we're going to be discussing the environment that surrounds you. We're talking about creating a healthy environment and what that even means, and what we hope you leave after this conversation with is this understanding that your environment affects all dimensions of your health. It affects your mental health, your physical health, and your emotional health. And when we really get into intentionally creating our environment, we'll find that we have much more power and control than we might initially think. So, Tanya, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what this environmental conversation really means?
Okay, so when Adam and I kind of started talking about this collaboration, we kind of wanted to start out with what actually is your environment? What is the definition of an environment? So we looked it up and it was actually really interesting. I thought that maybe it was just going to just be this bland, dry explanation. And what we found out is that an environment is actually your existing surroundings that affect an activity. And also more interesting than that was the totality of surrounding conditions and the circumstances affecting growth or development. So basically, your environment impacts everything about you, how you feel, how you're doing your job. I mean, and this is not just your workplace, this is your home place too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this that third part of it where it affects your growth and your development. So, are we creating an environment or are we exposing ourselves to an environment that either positively or negatively affects our growth and development? And what Tanya and I are going to be doing over the next 6 episodes. So this is episode 1 of 6, and we want this to be like 15-20 minutes, very quick, and give you some tools and some perspectives that you can use immediately. And we're going to unpack what your environment means to you in particular. So let's start the conversation with how our environment can impact our mental health.
Okay, so we found out that your environment can actually create or reduce stress. So we found this really awesome quote by Marie Kondo. And just a quick little side note, I have gotten totally hooked on her show on Netflix and how creating a calmer, peaceful, tidy environment actually impacts so many things about your life, how you feel about things, your energy level, that type of a thing. But the quote said, the objective of cleaning is not just to clean, but to feel happiness living within that environment. And just in thinking about your 911 environment, you want to be happy when you're doing your job and have that impact you in all different phases, how you're doing your job, how you feel about going to work, and that type of a thing. So I thought that was really interesting. It will heighten your awareness of how your environment affects your mental state. If you're distracted, if you feel on edge, checked out, if it's hard to focus, it can actually be because of your environment.
Absolutely, and I'm curious. I've found that many who work in this profession are type A perfectionists. We're a little bit controlling. In fact, some would even admit to being a control freak. And if you're a type A perfectionist control freak, I'm curious, how does untidiness impact your state of mind? And since you raised your hand and admitted that you are a type A perfectionist control freak, Tanya, why don't you speak to how untidiness, I'm using the word tidy intentionally because we can debate what clean means. And
Right.
some will say, well, my environment isn't very, I wouldn't say it's like spick and span or clean, but you definitely notice when something isn't tidy, how that impacts you. Can you speak to that, Tanya?
Yes, just from a personal standpoint, I will admit that I'm a type A perfectionist person. You can even ask my husband, it drives him insane. Um, but I have this very weird thing about me where I can't actually function until things are a certain way. And it doesn't mean like all of my cupboards and all of that kind of stuff have to be all organized, but I can't have like everything out of place. I can't have dishes in the sink and that type of a thing. It impacts, like, I cannot function. I cannot be productive till everything is where it needs to be. So I mean, that really resonated with me in a really big way. And I know that, I mean, you have an amazing story too about your dispatching days that I thought was kind of awesome, that kind of correlated with this as well.
Yeah, for those who are tuning in who don't know my story, I spent 10 years as a dispatcher for the Los Angeles Police Department, and for the first 7 years of my career, I was not intentional about creating my mental state and my mental environment. As a result, I was perpetually negative, and I was taking out my negativity and aggression on callers, on coworkers, on supervisors, and it wasn't until Tanya and I started to talk about this topic that I realized that my the environment that was impacting everything for me was my mental environment, meaning my negative thoughts got me negative results, and that's how I interacted with the world. And it wasn't until I increased my self-awareness to find that I was part of creating my mental environment, and thereby my physical environment and my emotional environment. I saw how all of these were interconnected. And interestingly, it was a stress reduction class that I took, a 6-week class that taught me how to just be still. And in the stillness created by like 10 or 15 minutes once a day, I just sat and was still. I began to notice that I had way more control around creating my environment than I initially thought. Prior to taking an active role in creating my environment, I just was a victim, and I blamed everybody else. I blamed the callers. I blamed my coworkers. I blamed my supervisors. I blamed traffic for stealing my joy. And I didn't know that I had the ability to take that back. I'm seeing some great comments here in the comment string. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing that. That untidiness can make us feel like we've lost a sense of control. And yes, Melissa, that's the snapshot of the angry Adam story that I was living through. Now, I would love to know from those of you who are tuning in live here, um, what measures do you take to create an environment, a healthy environment? And I use the word healthy to indicate an environment that's conducive to your success. That's really what we're talking about. So we can debate what success means to us individually, but we all kind of have a definition that means something to us. So what would it mean, and what does it mean to you personally? Those of you who are joining us live, what does it mean for you to create an environment that is conducive to your personal success? And I'd love to hear. I'd love to see some comments right now. This is an interactive, participatory show.
Yes. The more comments, the better.
And while we wait for that, it takes some time for the live stream to catch up. I want to share with you. I don't know if viewers, if you know this, but there have been several studies in our industry specific to 911 that have spoken to the power of modulating our mental health and our mental environment. And in fact, a 2015 study by Dr. Maishke, Dr. Lilly participated in this study as well, found that there's a correlation, and this is in 911, specific to 911 telecommunicators. There's a correlation between how much time the research participants spent ruminating, so overthinking, consumed about work, and how much stress, how many stress effects they felt on a daily basis. Another study found that those who are found to be, and this is in our profession, those who are found to be more psychologically rigid were found to have found to be more likely to experience greater stress levels and this chronic stress effects like tension, like indigestion, like being a little irritable, on edge. So the studies, the headaches and tension headaches, exactly. And the studies point to the realities that some of us are just believe that this is just the way it is. Now, if I had resigned myself to at the 7-year mark that this is just the way it is, I have no control over my environment, and certainly I can't control the callers, I can't control my coworkers, I can't control my supervisors, I wouldn't have been able to change from my angry Adam disposition. So we've been talking a little bit about controlling our mental environment. Can you speak to the physical environment side of things, Tanya?
Well, yes, I can. I mean, I go into centers and I see this firsthand where most times you go in and they're 24/7 environment. So you're sitting down at a console that somebody else has been sitting at for 12 hours. They've eaten there, they've blown their nose there, so it's a disaster. The keyboards are full of food and dust and toenails and fingernails and other things that we probably don't want to mention on here if anybody's eating lunch. So, oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. I know that some people have seen this in a presentation that I've given before, but that's a real thing and that's not uncommon. So, if any of you guys are watching this and working, take your keyboard right now, flip it upside down, shake it out, and you'll see that I'm right. And I really think that by creating a healthier and cleaner environment, we can raise our self-esteem and shift our energy. There was a study done by CNN that actually talked about that.
Really?
Yeah, in just doing research for this, it talked about the impact of your environment, and what I found was there was a really cool quote. It talked about the average person lives in an environment and sabotages his or her best efforts at every turn. You accomplish more quicker with ease if your environment literally nurtures and supports you. And I really loved that because, I mean, 911 is a difficult place to be. I mean, it's negative and it's a hard job. And so you want to actually be an environment that's nurturing you and supporting you. And so I loved that. But that's kind of what I want to help create.
I love that. I love that. And I'm seeing some great comments here about how we create an environment more conducive to success. Melissa, creating an environment that's open and authentic for communication with each other in the comm center. Awesome. Crystal, thank you for this. Organization, everything in its place, positive attitude, bright, cheerful work area, motivational notes posted. Filiberto, creating my own space when it comes to working on a console that is shared, adding a pen holder with my family pictures, a decor that can be placed in a locker when shift is over, something that is mine on my workplace. So that personalization is important. Love that. Amy, family team culture, positivity, open and honest communication, feeling valued, empowerment. Kate McCarty, recognition for a job well done. It goes such a long way for morale. Absolutely. Jamie, agreed. Here, trust and open communication is key. Workflow between partners. Jennifer, I love this. Our center had to write into policy that you weren't allowed to trim your nails at your console. Why? Why is that important? And you might say, we might say, well, that's just decency. That's just that simple sense of decency. And I think that that's somewhat dismissive because we all come from different walks of life. We all come from different walks of life, and some of us live differently than others. I think that we have to temper anything that we might talk about with a healthy dose of empathy, a healthy dose of understanding that we all come from a different walk of life, that each of us have a different level of awareness around this thing called environment. I know people who believe that. I've got another picture here that I have to find. Where is this? I lost it. I know people that believe that as long as yeah, it might be cluttered, the room might be cluttered, but I know where everything is, and that's fine. Some are not affected by clutter. However, we can say when we're sitting and having this conversation that there are certain environments that are more conducive to success. And what I'd like to offer, so what we're talking about here now is creating an organizational environment that's conducive to success. And I would like us to consider what might prevent us from creating an environment where trust and authenticity is possible, where open communication is key, where recognition happens frequently. Amy, to your point of building family, team culture, positivity, open, honest communications, feeling valued, feeling empowered. What prevents us from creating an organizational environment where these things are possible? That's really the question. Is I think we can talk about these things, and it's easier said than done.
Yeah, communication is key to pretty much everything, every relationship that you have, either at home or at work, honestly. But communication, especially with your coworkers, especially if you're working in that small of an environment together, you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're going to build up the tension and the resentment, and it could be the key between either being successful or not successful, in a crisis moment.
Absolutely. And it's interesting also that we have to see how one area of our lives are impact all other areas. Like for me, I didn't know that being angry Adam had a lot to do with my home life. Like I was an angry, bitter dispatcher on the job, and taking out my anger and frustration on callers. And I blamed it specifically on callers. Like I was firmly convinced that non-emergency callers were the bane of my existence. And the only way that I could possibly be cured was by no longer having to deal with non-emergency callers. But I couldn't afford to lose my good paying city job. I couldn't quit my job. I couldn't. So I had to realize that there was something within me that needed to change. And what happened was that I had to get out of a toxic relationship at home. I had to leave a failing side business. I had to start focusing on the things that were good for me, instead of gravitating towards negativity and toxicity. So I had to make that personal shift. And each one of us has an opportunity to see how all the dimensions of our lives are intertwined. And when we pull one lever over here, it affects something over there. Um, so Tanya and I really want you to leave with some perspectives from this conversation. And the first takeaway that we'd love for you to consider over the next weeks, because we're going to come back together on this same platform in 1 week. I'd like you to consider how your environment affects you. I'd like you to take the next week to become more aware of how your environment affects you, how your work environment, how your home environment, how the environment that you're creating between coworkers, especially if you're in a leadership role, when someone comes into your office, what type of environment have you created between you and that person? And as you begin to become more aware of this, try writing some thoughts down. around how your environment affects you physically, emotionally, mentally. Did you know that 80% of goals are achieved because they are written down?
So if you write down what you want to change, the likelihood of it actually happening is pretty great if you write it down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also, your emotions are telling you something. Your emotions are a leading indicator for what you are experiencing in any given situation. The more attuned you are to the emotional ramifications of the environment that you're exposed to, the more likely you are to see what's really going on. So, for those of you who felt a visceral reaction to the fingernails under the keyboards, if you feel a visceral reaction to the dust bunnies hanging out in the corners, notice that. Notice that. And there may be an opportunity to take action. And the third takeaway, Tanya, if you could take us through that.
What we want you to do just this next week is maybe take note of your environment and try and maybe do a couple of small things to improve your environment, whether it's taking a break for a breathing exercise, smiling at somebody more, just something small, maybe getting a walk in, when you have a little bit of time, that type of a thing, and see how that impacts you, see how that makes you feel, see if it makes you better at your job, feel better at your job. And just, we want to hear from you and know if that helped you, if it made a difference, if you noticed any changes, because it is all about something you can do now to create a healthier environment. And healthier doesn't always mean cleaner. It doesn't, I mean, it's a bigger, broader umbrella of a topic that impacts many different things, your emotional, mental, physical, and that type of a thing.
Absolutely. And so this week, your homework is to become more aware of what your environment does to you, and then take one specific, and I encourage you to take one small action. Agree to yourself to take one small action. You don't have to bite off more than you can chew. We're all very, very busy right now with everything else that's going on. But choose to take one small action to positively improve your environment so it's more conducive to your success. And I am going to give extra credit, a gold star, to anyone who is willing to comment right now on the string to admit to everybody what you are going to do. What's the small action that you can take over the next week to improve your environment? As I wait for that, I'm going to. Nathan says, "Clean up the sink for my wife." Nathan, you're getting a gold star from your wife here live. That's awesome. While we wait for a few more, I'm going to go through the comments here. And Melissa, you ask, how do you work in an environment with this virus? And you're the only one at your center that wears a mask. I'm terrified and my coworkers are not. So I'm starting to feel crazy. And it's hard to work under these conditions mentally. Melissa, great question. And it's very topical to what's going on.
Can I take that one?
Oh, please, please, please.
I honestly, like, with the concern about people wearing masks, not wearing masks, that type of a thing, I think, coming from a medical background, honestly, what you can do now is to protect yourself by using the right kind of disinfectant and just making sure that you're using it in the right way. And I feel like that would give you a little bit of peace of mind, just knowing that all of the control is on you and not worrying about what other people are doing as far as wearing a face mask or not. I mean, you can be in control of that.
I love that. So taking every precaution that you can, and then at some point you'll have to just let go of the judgment and discontentment that you feel around looking at others. Like it may not stop driving you crazy, but you can rest in the knowledge that you are doing everything that you need to do. So you're practicing social distancing, you're wearing a mask, you're disinfecting. It will go a long ways to demonstrating that you do have more control. So I love these. Oh, there was one comment, Katie. What's a healthy dispatcher? Is that even possible? And the reason I named my company the Healthy Dispatcher is because I was a very unhealthy dispatcher for years, and as a result of prioritizing my health and wellness, things changed dramatically. So it's absolutely possible. It's not easy, but it is definitely possible. Melissa, you are going to get a gold star. Yes. Your office needs some good cleaning out and reorganization. You will work on that this week. If you send a picture in over the next week, I will put it on the screen share on our next broadcast next week, and you will get a live gold star broadcast. Monty, you said less junk food, way less junk food. Yes, that's a simple measure that we can take. Filiberto, take a break from all the news, all the chaos. Yes, just say no. If you know what's going on in today's news stream, you will know what's going on tomorrow. Just take a day off. Things don't change.
Take a mental break.
Things exactly. Take a mental break. Judy, not be a grumpy morning person and say good morning to my coworkers. Judy, on behalf of all of the extroverts who frequently say yes and smile to coworkers as they pass down the hallway only to get a frowny, angry face in response, thank you for smiling back. Michelle, my faith helped me. It's faith, not fear. I love that. Serving the bridge is say, I have to remember to stop seeking out the storms and search out the sunlight. I love that. My office equals the black hole. Thank you, Roxanne. Jump into the black hole. You can persevere. Katie, you say clean on top of being in a busy center. I'm not sure what you mean. So what do you do if you can't take a break? Tanya, can you speak to this? If the organizational reality is that you can't leave your console, and so you can't necessarily take a break, what can we do then?
Well, there's a few things that you can do. Like, I mean, if you can't physically take a break, then the only thing that you're really going to be able to do is like use your disinfectants and that type of a thing when you have a quick break. But if you send me an email, I can definitely give you a couple of tips and hints and maybe some solutions to helping you.
Awesome. And I find that at centers where you can't necessarily take a break, that many dispatchers in this same situation use all of their downtime to get on social media. And they have a cell phone addiction or a news addiction, or they're filling that space with something that can be changed. So again, only you know what you're really up against and what you're dealing with. And only you know if you have some wiggle. I have found that people will come to my dispatcher training classes and they'll come up to me on a break and they'll say, I like what you're saying. I've done this and it still doesn't work. And I ask, my follow-up question is that absolutely true? That you're doing absolutely everything within your power to positively impact your life or your environment or your relationships or your work. And because I was a champion up until age 30, I was a champion in my own mind. I was a good employee. I was a nice person, even though my disciplinary record was telling me something different. Even though my conduct in the comm center when I was snapping at coworkers, snapping at supervisors, was telling me something different. I still thought I was an exemplary person and employee, but I was practicing mad self-deception. I found that my self-deception knew no bounds. So only you know where you have some wiggle. And I encourage you to, yes, detox from social media. I encourage you to just sit still. Like clear off the console, put all of your stuff in the drawer, and allow there to be some space. Notice how distracted you are. Notice how you can't even sit still.
And
Like
just
if
make the
you
conscious decision just to do one small tiny thing. I love in the comments you read somebody said something about sticky notes. It literally takes you 20 seconds to write an encouragement to one of your coworkers, stick it on their desk and walk away. Do that and see how it changes your environment. It will impact it. It will make it a brighter, more positive place to be. I can guarantee it.
I love it. I love it. Laura, Tanya, or Tanya, Laura says, I shuck corn to relax. Very nice. Uh, a message from Laura. Thank you so much. Um, so also, if you're in a leadership role, one of the very best things that you can do during this time of uncertainty is to be in communication with your dispatchers. Talk to them more than you think that they would like. In fact, I found that even the crusties in the dispatch center, the negative Nellies, the pissy Petes, the angry Adams, want to be noticed in their own way. And so there's an opportunity now more than ever to modulate your approach to let people know that you see them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super important now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, when you said that and that you see them, I also just added and that you hear them, because everybody, that's like the communication 101 is everybody wants to be heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, on that note, you have your homework. You are armed with some tools, some perspectives that you can implement, and you know what your marching orders are. I want to thank you all for joining us live. We are going to be back here in 1 week at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time for another episode of Creating Your Healthy 911 environment. Next week, we're going to do a deep dive into mental health and what that even means. Tanya, any last words before we say goodbye?
Nope, I can't wait to see what you all leave sticky notes for everybody, and I can't wait to see who we give gold stars to.
Yay. Awesome. Tanya, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us. See you again soon.
Okay.